nukes, saucers, secret bases and alleged alien envoys, we're about to take a deep dive into the origins of one of the most famous places in ufology. Today, we're talking Area 51. Part 1. May 19, 1953. The world holds its breath as the United States detonates a nuclear device at the Nevada test site. The 12th test of the country's burgeoning nuclear arsenal. More specifically, it's a subatomic device with a relatively small yield code named Upshot Knothole Pascal B. At 5:26 a.m., the blast rocks the desert sands. 1 minute later, a witness hundreds of miles away reports a fiery orange disk diving south towards the Vegas ranges. A disk that bears a striking resemblance to the nuclear fireball just moments before. It was big, shaped like a giant mushroom cloud, and was headed straight for the hills. Others see it too. Armed with cameras, they snap pics of the object, which are never released to the public. Officially, the Air Force has no comment. But 2 days after the nuclear shot, on May 21st, officials from the Atomic Energy Commission and the Air Force quietly assemble a science team for a crash site. Some 160 miles northeast of Las Vegas. They've received word of an object crashing in the desolate badlands of a place called Kingman, Arizona. What unfolds next remains classified, though bits and pieces would filter out over the decades. On May, under cover of darkness, military MPs ring a pristine 40-foot disc-shaped object sitting in a dry wash. No visible damage to the craft. No sign of life or death. But witnesses claim there were 4 non-human beings inside. Some say 3. All accounts agree that the bodies were placed aboard a transport plane and shipped to Groom Lake, along with the craft itself. Over the next several years, the remote salt flat becomes the seed of America's most infamous UFO base, a place where whispers turn to shouts and conspiracy reigns supreme. Soon enough, the veil is drawn over Groom Lake and the nearby town of Rachel, Nevada, home to the Little Aol Inn, a UFO-themed diner and gift shop. Its walls are plastered with tales of the unexplained, including stories of a crashed alien craft and its alleged occupants. Now, let's cut away to 1957. A young aviator sits in his office at the Pentagon. His name is Frank Stretches. He's an evangelist and chaplain in the U.S. Air Force. And soon he'll tell the world of Valiant Thor, a human-looking visitor from another world who came to warn us about our increasingly hot and heavy nuclear arms race. According to Strang, Thor personally briefs President Eisenhower, who is as skeptical as he is intrigued. Valiantly, Thor tells the president to dial back the nuke program and act as an ambassador to his kind while he's at it. This was in 1957. That's right, way before Roswell and even Area 51. Thor had been here before, but no one knew. Okay, so Thor meets with Ike, and that's that. Right? Not quite. Apparently, Valiant Thor returns to Earth periodically to check in on the progress of his mission, which, by all accounts, is going poorly. Fast forward to 1966, 8 years after the alleged first meeting. The Air Force chaplain is once again waxing poetic about intergalactic visitors. Only this time, Thor isn't alone. He's brought friends. Enter J.J. Rockefeller, a self-described physician and medical researcher, who claims to have worked at a top-secret facility housing extraterrestrials and their technology. Sure, he made that up. That's not his real name. And he doesn't have any medical credentials. To wit, Robert A. Lazar. It was during the height of the Cold War, October 1982, when Lazar tells his tale to a local TV station in Las Vegas. By his own admission, he was trying to get noticed by the powers that be, preferably in the UFO beat. But little did he know how well his story would stick. According to his account, Lazar was doing classified research at ESFA, a highly classified branch of Area 51. There he saw firsthand 9 different types of propulsion vehicles, each more exotic than the last. In fact, one was powered by element 115, which hadn't yet been synthesized by scientists. Okay, so he sees all these cool things. But what else does he do? So the story gets more insane, but it can also get more confusing. See, there are some holes in the timeline, namely that Lazar didn't begin his supposed tenure at S4 until 1982, yet he claims to have seen the J-Rod in 1959. Well, microbiologist Don Burish, who goes by the alias Bob Dean in some accounts, claims he was there in 1964 working on a diplomatic mission with J-Rod, which by then had regressed back into a coma. His job to monitor its brainwaves and collect DNA samples. Supposedly, the being's coma coincided with the Gemini 5 and 6 space missions. A curious bit of timing, if true. Later, Burish will revise his timeline, claiming he was actually there in 1984. But wait, there's more. In 1998, a former physicist at Los Alamos National Laboratory comes forward. His name is Philip J. Corso. He claims to have run a series of tests on a single cell taken from the J-Rod in 1964. The cell contained both male and female DNA, but it wasn't human. Now, one might think Corso's story adds weight to the others, but that depends on your position. See, Corso believed the US government was reverse engineering alien tech from materials left behind at Roswell in 1947. Is J-Rod simply another piece of that puzzle? Perhaps, or maybe, Corso was the outlier, making connections that weren't really there. After all, J-Rod is just a name. We don't know if that was the being's moniker or a designation assigned by the military, further muddying the waters. Lazar will pass away in 2016 without ever clarifying his sources or providing hard evidence. As for Corso, well, he died in 2013. So where does that leave us? With a pile of circumstantial evidence and shaky memories, perhaps, but also with one heck of a story. As for me, I remain agnostic, but I'm willing to suspend belief just a little. Why not, after all? As we learned in Part 1, nukes and saucers seem to go hand in hand. Take the case of the alleged alien envoy, for instance. Could his message have come at a more important time? Could he have influenced Ike's decision to pursue peaceful uses of atomic energy? Could he have inspired the development of the Polaris missile, which used nuclear power to drive an electric generator, thus giving birth to the modern Navy? Well, maybe. Could Thor have saved the planet from mutually assured destruction? Again, maybe. Point being, maybe there's something to all this crazy talk. Maybe there is a reason why the government went to such great lengths to hide the alleged crash in Kingman. Why they moved the craft and its occupants to a remote salt flat outside Las Vegas. Why they set up a fake town and strictly limited access to the area. What's more, Area 51 is hardly the only site tied to alleged alien activity. The skunk works started in World War II. When the military pushed Lockheed into building its first jet fighter, the P-80, the prototype, was finished in just 143 days. So that's where the legend of the skunk works began. It had nothing to do with aliens or UFOs, but over the years, the name has been synonymous with all things classified. In today's episode, we'll look at one man's connection to both Area 51 and UFOs. That man is Clarence Kelly Johnson, lead engineer on many legendary aircraft like the U-2, the later A-12, and the SR-71 Blackbird. It was December 16, 1953. Johnson was flying near Agoura, California, about 30 miles northwest of downtown Los Angeles. There were no commercial airliners up there. There wasn't even a friendly aircraft like a military jet or crop duster. And certainly, there was no contrails left by another plane. Yet, this thing was flying erratically. It seemed to be flying straight towards him. It was coming straight for me, and then it turned rates that indicated that it was capable of turning at 60 degrees per second. And it did so without banking. I don't know what it was. I don't know who was flying it. All I know is that it wasn't an airplane. That day, Johnson filed a UFO report which was later reviewed by the Air Force's top-secret Project Blue Book. This is the only known surviving sketch of the event. Johnson made it himself and signed it. Now it's held in the National Archives along with other Blue Book cases. By the mid-50s, Johnson was helping pick the site now known as Groom Lake. It was ideal. It was isolated, far from population centers, and had long, flat runways. But the question is, was it just for Black Project's jets, or also for off-world hardware? Going underground, a research group said the real expansion at 51 is down, not out. They are talking about massive underground facilities connected to the Nevada test site. According to researcher Andy Basiago, they were used for reverse engineering crashed UFOs. In 2018, miners working near Rachel, NV, pointed out old workings like the Tenute mine. They said their digging went deep and was likely connected to Area 51. Locals claim that the spoiled dirt from the diggings literally disappears. One way that might happen would be via the heaps on the nearby hillsides. Heap leaching masks the volume of material being removed. The heaps can be seen from satellite photos and have long been the source of speculation. They look man-made but are explained away as natural. Here you can see the heaps surrounding the mountain known as home base. Some of these are natural, but the sheer number of them and their perfect shapes suggest otherwise. According to one of the miners, the heaps are part of a hush-up. Local mines accept the ore or spoil and pay the miners. Everyone gets paid and nobody asks questions. A wider map, journalist Leslie Keane said there's a rumor of a tunnel web branching out from Area 51. One end of the web is at the alleged hub at Cheyenne Mountain near Colorado Springs, the location of the North American Aerospace Defense Command, better known as NORAD. Other ends branch to Tulsa, New Mexico, Los Alamos, New Mexico, Albuquerque, New Mexico, Roswell, New Mexico, and of course, Area 51. Allegedly, high-speed underground transit is possible between any 2 points on the map. However, there is no concrete evidence of this. All that remains are anecdotes. For example, this one from former base commander Bruce Hibbard. I heard stories of guys going up to the mountain, meaning home base, and within 10 minutes they would be out at the gate, and within 20 minutes they would be at the hotel in Las Vegas. And I thought, how the hell could that be? There are numerous stories about this type of rapid transit, but none can be substantiated. Another compelling story comes from former SR-71 pilot, Bob Salas. He spent a lot of time at the range in the early 1970s. Salas said the best place to stay was in Las Vegas. We had a private terminal. We'd fly right up to a closed hangar, and we could park our cars in the closed hangar. The door would be closed until we got back. And if there were any problems with the aircraft, they would be taken care of while we were out flying. And then we would just land back in Las Vegas and leave the airplane and go home. According to Salas, the S-4 was heavily involved in testing the SR-71 Blackbird. He also said that some of the aircraft stored there were alien in nature. If that is true, they weren't easy to spot because they were disguised. Disguise, he says, was part of the job. But perhaps the most fascinating tale comes from USAF Capt. Robert Salas, also an SR-71 pilot. In a recent interview, he said he worked at Area 51 between 1979 and 1985 under special clearances. Those clearances allowed him to discuss certain matters openly, unlike those given to others. Salas said his daily commute was 1 hour each way on Janet Airlines from Las Vegas. Some riders would peel off to a site called S4. That's a known remote outpost of Area 51, he said. Quote, "We flew out to this particular landing strip, and there were all kinds of different aeroplanes out there. You didn't know whether you were looking at something that was Russian or American. And we would do these tests on them, and make sure that our electronic countermeasures worked against them, and that they could untrack us anymore." After a while, Salas heard Bob Lazar's account of the same thing. The Janet flight, the mysterious terminal, the bus ride to S4, everything matched. Salas said he later heard his colleagues confirm they saw Bob Lazar on site. However, Salas admitted he can't prove Lazar worked there because official denials claim otherwise. So the question is, should we believe him? Salas's story checks out in several key areas. For example, he said SR-71s were stored at S4. This matches a report by the Project Mogul team, Mogul being the code name for a series of high-altitude balloon projects during the Cold War. The report claimed the hangars at S4 were too small for SR-71s. Therefore, the planes must have been stored outside. That would explain why Salas said the planes were disguised. Also, Salas said the S4 was heavily involved in developing the SR-71. This squares with the fact that Lockheed built the SR-71 at Palmdale, California, a stone's throw from Edwards Air Force Base, home of the Air Force Flight Test Center, the very center of high-speed flight testing. In addition, Salas said he had special clearance to talk about the S4. Now, that doesn't prove anything, but it does make his story more believable. But here's the problem. To get to Groom Lake from Las Vegas, you have to pass through a military checkpoint. And the military claims no record of Salas or anyone else ever entering the base. Again, this doesn't prove anything. Many people who worked on the Skunk Works programs had false IDs and assumed false identities. Perhaps Salas had one of those. As far as Area 51 goes, Salas' story squares with what we already know. The base was used for developing and testing new aircraft. Some were real exotics. The Lockheed A-12 was one of the first to come to mind. Designed in the mid-1950s, the A-12 was a spy plane that flew higher and faster than anything before it. It had a distinctive, arrow-shaped fuselage and was powered by 2 turbojet engines that could take it to speeds of Mach 3.3 or over 2,200 miles per hour. Later versions were called the M21 and the SR-71. Others, like Salas, have said the A-12 program was a front for something else. Something more advanced, something not of this world. But what if it's not a front? What if it's all real? That is to say, what if Area 51 really is the home of reverse engineering? What we can say is that cutting-edge aviation thrived at Groom Lake. What's alleged is a crash, contact, tunnels, and tech swap. Take what you will. Weigh the testimony, documents, and science. Stay curious, not credulous. Thanks for watching. Have an opinion? Let me know in the comments below. Want to know more about Area 51? Check out my playlist. As always, thanks for watching. See you next time.